that balance gradually comes to a clearer understanding of the person as they go through and do healthy things through this grieving process. I guess that's the best way I could explain it.
Okay, I like
There's
that.
no absolutes here. Yeah.
Oh, I understand. Yeah. A lot of the things we do in our world are more of an art than a science. I do understand that.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly.
Okay, let me bring up a part that's going to make some of our listeners angry with me.
Okay.
But it is a reality. All right, the woman I left Alice for, the one I was going to marry and be happily ever after, all that kind of stupidity that I was in at the time. That, when she abandoned me, I went into a grief process. We'll have a couple on the program next week, Richard and Petra, who are just these wonderful, wonderful people. And when he finally came back to, well, it's actually Petra, when he came back to her after ending things with the other woman, he went through the grief process about the other woman once he was back with Petra.
Right.
Petra was so strong that she actually helped him go through that grief process. And I'll be asking him some questions about that next week. So this is applicable even if the relationship you had, other people think you should have not had it, or even if you regret the fact that you had it, right?
Right. But you gave up part of your heart to this other woman, right or wrong. I mean, it was wrong, but you did.
It was wrong.
Right. And our emotions, and you know this, our emotions, I don't sit around, and if a bomb goes off outside, I don't sit around for 30 seconds trying to decide how I'm going to respond to that. I'm going to jump. I'm going to scream. I'm going to probably, put you in front of me so you can protect me. I'm going to respond.
You're referring to my being larger than you now.
No. I wasn't going to say that.
Okay.
No. I'm going to respond with my emotions, and that's what emotions are. And so as I give my heart to somebody else, I'm wrong decisions to get to that point. But once you do, it's not realistic, and it's not an honest recovery if you don't acknowledge that those emotions still exist. And so, as you know, those emotions go away with abstinence. But the emotions are neither right. They just are. We know that. We've heard that all our lives, but it's so true. And so I've got to deal with those emotions. And it's the same thing, the grief process. If I give myself permission to have those emotions, even though I'm not with the other person, and if my spouse is as strong as this woman is, and as strong as Alice was and is, they give yourselves permission to have those feelings too. I think the feelings will go away quicker when you stop fighting against them.
Yes, very
and that's for both parties. Yeah.
Excellent. Boy, I'm glad you wrote that.
It's leaning into the waves instead of facing the waves head on. It's leaning into the waves, giving yourself permission to be propelled by the waves, and it doesn't hurt near as badly. Permission to grieve is at the heart of so much. And same way with faith in God. People say you should, here's somebody who divorces, or their husband leaves them, or their wife leaves them, or abandons them. Maybe they emotionally abuse them, and they live in an empty marriage, and they're very lonely. And, good Christian people say you should get over it. God won't give you more than you can handle. Well, that's just not true. God didn't give you that. God didn't give you that, number one. And by the way, the Son of God grieved. And, a part of grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of, or a change in a familiar pattern of behavior. See, it's a change of a familiar pattern, and I don't know what to do with myself. I quit preaching after 40 years. Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, do you think I went through a grieving period? 40 years of preaching every Sunday. I was happy. I wasn't in so much stress.
I understand.
But it was, I grieved. And so here's Jesus on the cross. He had never experienced sin, but he became our sinner, even though he did know sin. And he was grieving. And if you don't beat yourself up when you grieve in any situation where there's been a loss, and whether it's non-death losses or death losses, it's a change of the familiar pattern of behavior. Plus, part of my heart's gone, and the person I had with me, and the person we had dreams together, we're going to live life together. That's shattered dreams, and that's huge. And so, okay, give yourself permission, and you'll be better off.
Very good. Well, we're about to take a caller. Before that, we've been talking about some pretty heavy stuff. The next thing was heavy for me, but as you would say, I should not, if anybody were to say to me, oh, get over it, like, ignore that.
Yeah.
One of the, and it happens to this day, every Christmas Eve, I get extremely sad.
Wow.
Because my children are grown. I'm not having to figure out how to put together that bike or those other things and would stay up till, 1 o'clock in the morning saying words I'm glad they were in bed and wouldn't hear because I'm trying to put these things together. And now they're grown and they have their own families, except for my mentally handicapped daughter who lives with us. But they're grown and have their own families, and Joanna has her own children. And so every Christmas Eve, I guess I go through the grief process all over again.
Yes.
That they're not little children anymore.
Yeah.
The same
That's a great illustration.
The same principles work there, Dave?
Oh, exactly. And those are triggers. We call them triggers. And, you have anticipated triggers. And holidays are really tough. A couple of our friends of ours who help us do the workshops, their daughter was murdered by her husband about 5 years ago, and they live here in Searcy. And anyway, it was just a tremendous tragedy, obviously, and so much more involved in that. But Dennis was telling me the other day that this last December, a year ago, was the worst month he's had in 5 years. And he helps us do grief recovery retreats. And it's because of the triggers that it brings up. And so our advice to people about triggers is when it's anticipated, have a plan for it. So Joe you need a plan for Christmas Eve. You and it'd be really helpful, and you've probably done this. You and Alice, first of all, you need to share that with somebody, and you did. And if you share it with Alice and she accepts that as she would, then you say, what are we going to do with this? And sometimes you can't do anything. You just have to go through the sadness. But we really, we go over this as a section of our retreats. Please have a plan for anticipated triggers: birthdays, anniversary of death, anniversary of divorce, wedding anniversaries, when you're divorced or separated or the spouse dies. And then there's the unanticipated triggers, right? Something triggers you, and it might be a song. And here's a husband who had an affair, and he puts it back with his wife, and they build their marriage. And he hears a song that was meaningful to him and his lover 5 years ago. It's an unanticipated trigger. It could be a smell. It could be a number of things. I mean, when people ask us how many grandchildren we have, I don't know what to say. Right? I mean, we have 8 grandchildren, but 7 are on this earth, and one's in heaven. And it just depends on what I want to do with it. But that could be an unanticipated trigger. And what we say to unanticipated triggers, give yourself permission to grieve when something hits you like that. It goes back to the fundamental. And so you hit upon something that's really a big issue with those who are grieving. It's a huge issue. The triggers.
Okay, are you ready to take a call, my friend?
Yeah, as long as you're on the phone with me, buddy.
Okay, we're going to Fredericksburg, Virginia. Hi, you're on the program with us. Are you there? Hello, caller. Area code 540. Well, Dave, I guess. I keep calling you Dave. I know your name is David. Forgive me.
Oh, it's okay. I don't care.
I guess that person must have gone to the restroom or something. We'll try them again in a minute. And we have a lot of people that are on phone listening to us. We can see. We don't know how many people are actually listening to us live on Blog Talk Radio or on marriageradio.com. And, of course, thousands of people listen to the program later on iTunes. And so a lot of people also call in, and I can see the number of people that have called in. But if the callers want to actually ask you a question or talk to us, then they have to press the number 1. Now, I'm not sure if you've already been listening to us for the program. I'm not sure if you want to talk to Dave or ask David a question. That I don't know if you have to call back and press that number 1 when you hear the menu, or if you can just press the number 1 at any point. But David is here. As you can tell, he's a very compassionate man. As you can also tell, he's a very transparent person about his own pain and grief. He's a person, as I identified earlier in the program, that I have a deep love for him and his wife. We've been friends for a long, long time.
All right.
And you the two of you have a lot of people. I'm going to try this caller one more time to see if he or she has come back. Hello, area code 540. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, I'm here.
Okay. Would you like to ask a question about how to deal or heal with loss?
Yes. I'm in a situation in my marriage. Basically, my husband and I went through a period where we were hurting each other, and I didn't know it at the time, but he fell out of love with me, and then went on to have an emotional affair. So we're still living in the same house, but he just seems really resistant to trying to reconnect with me. And I'm just not really sure how to reach him. And a lot of what you shared about grief, really hit home, like just the feelings I'm going through. But I don't know if any of what you described would be helpful for him. Sort of the resentments and things like that. I'm not sure how to reach him.
How long has it been since he started being involved with the other person?
It, I think, started in the spring, and then I sort of confronted him in October, and he confessed then.
Okay, and he's still living at home with you. Is he still, as far as you know, involved with the other person?
He says not, but I know that he still has contact with her, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. By any chance, have you heard the program that we do on boundaries?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So right now what I hear you... Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say he just has so much anger and resentment toward me that I'm scared
that if you do anything...
Right.
Okay, so David, we have a person who is in the middle of the grief process, but he's still in the house. How do you deal with that?
Wow. Well, first of all, it's okay that you feel terrible. I know that sounds terrible for me to say. It goes back to you are grieving, right? Because you've been shattered, right? Your heart feels like in a million pieces, and your dreams have been shattered, the expectations that you had for the marriage, and it's a serious thing. And so the first thing that I think would apply is give yourself permission. You're not crazy, okay? I don't know what your faith background is, but you might have felt like if you had a greater faith, this might not have happened. And often people start to question their faith. And again, I don't know what your background is there, but it's very easy to feel like something's wrong with you. And I'm not saying that you're perfect. I know you have faults, and we all have faults, right? So, but you are grieving the loss of expectations and shattered dreams, and what Joe said, there is hope. And every counselor says this, and I know Joe has said it. I've got to work on me, and part of that is setting healthy boundaries, right? And so setting those healthy boundaries, and you can go to Joe's program and get some help there. And then, of course, Joe does the marriage helper workshops for those marriages that are really hurting. And so that's maybe for the future. But first, take care of yourself and set those healthy boundaries and work on those things that you can change about yourself. It's like on Thursday nights in our retreats, we say, we're not here to fix you. So if I tried to fix my spouse, it usually doesn't work very well. And so I've got to look at me, but I don't want to beat myself up too badly. I want to give myself permission to feel really bad. And then I get in position to get up and start doing those healthy things. And I know you might need some help in doing that.
Are you by any chance a part of our online course, Save My Marriage?
I am not.
Okay. Well, and maybe that's not a poor